Erev Tov Chaverim, I'm Stephen Benoon. You're watching Israeli News Live. News is breaking all across Europe, even into Brazil. Of course, many are already aware of the struggles in Brazil. But first, we're going to be going right to what's happening here in Russia. In fact, not sure exactly where it's going on. We'll be going into that. Ukraine, Paris, riots breaking out in Paris, continuing that is. But before we get started, let's go right here to Zero Hedge. Zero Hedge is actually reporting from the New York Times. It's actually where I got it at myself first. That Russia, according to sources at the New York Times there, Russia has actually moved one of its cruise missile battalions away from the test zone to put it actually into service. No doubt there is concerns by NATO that this missile defense or this cruise missile system has been moved closer to the European border. Let me kind of just give you a little update here. What Tyler Durden has said here, Russia secretly deploys banned cruise missiles in a latest challenge to Trump. That's exactly right. So more and more we're beginning to see like the Cuban Missile Crisis of John F. Kennedy when he was faced with Russia deploying nuclear bombs down in Cuba. And we brought this out when it came to Kaliningrad. It was NATO's Cuban Missile Crisis all over again. But it seems like that President Trump, much like President Kennedy, is the one being put in the hot seat when it comes to something this serious here. According to the 1987 treaty that the U.S. had with the Soviet Union at that time, was that there would be no ballistic missiles. It could go anywhere from 500 kilometers to 5,500 kilometers on a land-based type system. That would be nowhere in Europe. But then again, NATO has constantly built up upon Russia's border, also in Poland, Latvia, Lithuania, all the Baltic states, Estonia, now Romania, and even we're finding out that the U.S. has brought in a destroyer in the Black Sea, and there's also been an upcoming with NATO. Some of the forces there will be doing another training exercise inside the Black Sea, really causing nerves with Russia to get more and more on edge. And even though President Trump has talked about wanting to have a better relationship with Russia and even possibly lifting the sanctions, slowly but surely all this is changing as the tensions grow greater and greater with Russia and NATO, with each of them doing their own types of war games on each other's borders there. Saw a picture recently there with the United States military gathered up against the fence there with machine guns and rocket, grenade launchers, etc., standing there getting a picture taken right next to, in the background, a Russian fortress. Right against the fence. I guess that would make anybody just a little bit nervous to see all these machine guns and stuff coming up and posing for a picture. That's pretty provocative if you ask me. But anyway, this is coming along. It's something that's came out according to the New York Times. The person that released this information did it on anonymity, did it to said it secretly because he did not want the information to get out. It was very much a high risk for him to actually say it. So he spoke on condition of anonymity there. So anyway, let me take you on to some more things that we are seeing as well. And I think this is important to see. The United States as well has shipped in more and more military equipment, including the helicopters, the Black Hawks, and of course the Chinook, which is what you're seeing here on your screen now, the Chinook right here. The Chinook is very well known for carrying in troops closer to a battlefield and dropping them off. But tremendous amount of hardware being moved up to the Baltics there and in Poland as well. It is as if the entire NATO and Russia are preparing for a third world war. I had one journalist that I stay in contact with sent me a message today when I was speaking about Russia's Zapad exercises, and he assured that these are done as a defensive measure, not an offensive measure. It looks like Russia must be expecting something bad to go down from some of the actions they're taking, especially the latest one after sending in the nuclear warhead missiles there into Kaliningrad. Now this new deployment of cruise missiles, no telling where at in Russia. No one has disclosed the location, but I'm sure there's a lot of fear that that's come closer to Europe. Also, we have this one in here. It came off of Conflict News. Says breaking multiple Russian aircraft came close to the U.S. destroyer in the Black Sea last week. U.S. officials on Reuters has stated this information here. Not been able to corroborate any of this information, but that was stated today, and supposedly this just happened here in the last few days. Kind of reminds us of the incident up in the Baltics there when Russia's one of their Sukhois came down through there and disabled the USS Donald Cook, which later got the nickname the Donald Duck as a result of that. Another interesting news here, very concerning as well, and that is, let me kind of let it play. I'll turn the volume down for you here. But this is a chemical plant inside of the eastern part of Ukraine, the Donetsk region there. Russian officials came there after some very heavy bombing was done by the Ukrainian government. As you can see, they're not wearing any kind of gas mask of anything of this nature here. It was a chemical plant, but it did not contain any weapons-grade chemicals, as they're showing by the Russian scientists there that are there to test not only the types of weapon that was used there on the plant, but also to show that there was not, this chemical factory was not being used for wartime chemicals. It is believed that it was 152 millimeter shells that were being used on the facility here. They did test it for mustard gas, chlorine gas, etc., and nothing was found, no evidence of any of these things here, which naturally by the mere use of this that they're there without their mask on kind of shows that it was pretty much safe for them to be in that area there. Irrefutable evidence, according to RT, says Kiev is using the WMD against East Ukraine civilians. Russian investigators are finding this information out. These are some very, as you can see on your screen, some very large missiles. In fact, it is believed that those missiles there is what has been used on the chemical weapons facility. At least that's one take we have seen, not in the video that we just shared with you, but there's been others that have suggested that's in fact what they were using. President Trump also is standing behind the United States ambassador to the United Nations, Ms. Haley, her comment that sanctions will not be lifted on Russia until Crimea is handed back over to the Ukrainians. I don't see that happening anytime soon. Maybe this is one reason why we're seeing the movement of weapons and troops by Russia as well. Like I said, nobody knows where, but assuming that would be closer to Europe's border. Paris, by the way, is in an uproar tonight. According to Sputnik News, riots could color France's presidential election if violence persists. If the suburbs of Paris are unable to subdue rioters, the dynamics of the French presidential election campaign are likely to change. Journalist Thomas Guanol told Sputnik of France there. Our good friend Renzi also sent me this video here just moments ago showing the riots, the burning of the van that took place today. And this has been an ongoing issue where rioters have been setting cars on fire, torching things. It is getting very much out of hand in Paris. And it seems here lately that Paris has become the magnet for all types of unrest and trouble. We know that Paris also has a very large refugee population as well. And whether or not who all is involved in this is hard to say, but nonetheless, it is making for some very unsafe conditions for French citizens living there in Paris with this type of riots and things going on. Moving on to our final message here to share with you guys here, and that is over in Brazil. Brazil also in turmoil with unrest going on. The police have been on strike now for about a week in one of the one of the states of Brazil's province there. The Brazilian government has had to send in the military. There have been 100 fatalities as a result since the police have gone on strike, protesting the conditions that they are dealing with there. It's just really becoming a world of seeming almost complete chaos. Very troubling in the times that we're living in. Also want to remind you guys as we close out this evening's news broadcast, we'll be in Israel next month, March the 28th. Your help in doing this mission to the Israeli people is a vital need. It is a very expensive endeavor to be able to rent the facility where we will be speaking to our Israeli friends there, as well as you're invited as well. It'll be March the 28th, but just to be able to rent the facility alone is like $3,000. Doesn't count trying to get there, the hotel cost, airfare, etc. So we are reaching out to you, and if it's something that you feel will be a blessing, and we believe it is, to try to warn the Israeli people of the prophetic implications that are happening all around Israel, that are happening in modern days, looking at the prophecies that sages have never pointed out to our Israeli brothers and sisters there, and how it clearly is setting the stage for the coming of the Mashiach, the coming of the Messiah. And we want to try to get this message over to our Israeli friends. So if you would like to be a part of that, your help is desperately needed. Please go to IsraeliNewsLive.org or IsraelReturns.com. I'll put the link to both our websites there in the video below, as well as our physical address here in Prague, Czech Republic, Post Office Box 46. If you prefer to send by mail. Thank you very much. So many, by the way, I should say a few, is more the correct way, have been so kind to send your gifts to us here by mail. And one in particular, I wish I had the envelope here with me, but we had one in particular that was probably the most awesome blessing of all because it arrived. Someone had placed a small cash donation in there, and what they had wrote on the envelope on how much they had put in there was exactly what was in there. But what made it so interesting, there was no postage on the envelope whatsoever. There was no return address to where we could thank the sister that had sent it. But we want you to know that it got here, and it had to be the providence of God, because generally the mail doesn't like delivering letters overseas, especially a heavy letter, because it had some coins in there as well. They don't like delivering that without postage, but it made it here anyway. I think that was just God's mercy. Thank you. God bless you, and thank you for all you do to help us keep this broadcast going. I'm Stephen Benoon. You're watching Israeli News Live. Shalom.